Okay, so I'm going to go through number 2. For inequalities, you always want the x on the left. I know sometimes we can move like the x either way we want, but for inequalities, you do want like the format x is less than or greater than your number. Hopefully you remember this is the what sign, greater or less than? Greater. That's the greater than. And then, that one is less. We're not going to be dealing with the equal sign underneath, but do you guys remember like this is less than or equal? That is greater than or equal. So for this one, that is a greater than sign. So I'm going to subtract. Again, I want my x's on the left, so I'm going to subtract my x here. So 8 minus 10 gives me a negative 2x, and then I'm going to add 7. Okay, then I'm going to subtract 7 from each side. I'm still bringing down that greater than sign. You just want to carry it throughout as if it were your equal sign. So I have a negative 2x is greater than negative 22. Okay, this is where we have to remember the rule for inequalities. I'm dividing by a negative number. It does not matter that this is a negative 22. Okay, that part doesn't matter. It could be a positive 22, but because we're dividing by a negative number, what do we have to do to the sign? We have to flip that greater than sign to a less than sign. So this will be x is less than positive 11. Some of you kept the x on the right-hand side, so you would end up getting 11 is greater than x. If you ended up like that, you need to be able to flip it. So we have to read it backwards. Because this smaller point is next to the x, when we read it backwards, it's x is less than 11. So I just think you have less problems if you go just moving the x to the left every time. Anybody have questions about that? Okay, we're also going to be graphing an inequality at the end. So just real quick, on a number line is how you graph inequalities. I would just pick a place for it to be 11. Doesn't matter if it's just one value, you can pick anywhere. And then this is all numbers less than 11, so what direction am I shading here or drawing? To the left, so it will be this direction. Sometimes it's shaded, sometimes it's just with an arrow, and then a circle, an open circle. If it's a closed circle, it's going to be one of these equal signs. But the open circles go with just the greater than, less than sign. All right, so please copy down the triangle inequality theorem. Okay, so this is a super easy concept. We can prove or check to see if we have a triangle by using their sides. So a triangle exists if the sum of the two smaller sides is larger than the third. And I wrote that out as like a little inequality to kind of help remember that. So the sum of my two smaller sides has to be greater than the third for it to be a triangle. So that's just an easy way to check to see if it's even a triangle. But keyword there is the smallest sides. We want to pick the two small. I should put smallest. Two smallest sides. So it's not always the first two, but for the ones that we're about to do, they are. So my two smaller sides would be 8 and 17. So I'm going to add those. And I'm just going to go ahead and set up my inequality here. That needs to be greater than the third side, which is 24. So this is a super, again, easy idea. So what's 8 plus 17? 25. Is 25 greater than 24? Yes. Yes. So your answers are either yes or no. So this one is yes. So you just want to ask yourself, is 25 greater than 24? If your answer is yes, then your answer is yes. If your answer is no, then no. So let's try the next one. My two smaller sides are 3 and 3. What is 3 plus 3?
6.
Is 6 greater than 7?
No.
No. So your answer is no. So go ahead and try 3 and 4 here. Okay. So the next part is just as easy. This is when we're finding a range for a possible third side. So we see in number 9 and 10 that we're only given 2 sides, and we want to find a possible third. Okay, so we can find a range, and I'm going to write that over here. We can find a range of possible lengths for our third side. Okay, by doing a compound inequality, which you guys should be familiar with. So please write down what I'm writing down.
No.
So x is greater than a and x is less than b. Okay, this a is represented by the difference of the two numbers. And that number represented by b would be the sum of the two numbers. So all we have to do is add my two numbers together and subtract them and plug them into this to find a range. So we'll do this one together. So I'm going to do the sum. So 14 plus 22. I'm also going to do the difference. So really simple math here. Is it 8? Yeah. Okay, so we plug in the difference first. So I'm just going to do my compound inequality here. So we're going to put the smaller number first. So 8 and then 36. And that is all it's asking us to do is find a range of possible values. Things to notice, when I read that you start with the x always, I say x is greater than 8. Okay, the gator mouth is open towards the x, so x is greater than 8, and x is less than 36. Are they equal to those values? Could it also be 36 or 8? No, it has to be in between the two numbers, so that's some things to notice there. Let's go ahead and try number 10. We're going to skip 11, 12, 13, and 14, so I just want you to try number 10. We're going to move on to number 15 and 16. If you want extra practice, you're more than welcome to do 11, 12, 13, and 14. But we're going to move on to these little word problems because we love word problems. Right? Okay, so if a triangle has the length 15 feet and 27 feet, check all the possible lengths for the third side. We're doing the exact same thing. We're finding the range and seeing which ones would fall in that range. So let's go ahead and find our sum and our difference. Okay, so you should have gotten 42 as your sum and 12 as your difference. Anybody get something else? So I'm going to put that in my inequality. So x is greater than 12 but less than 42. Can it be equal to 12 or 42? No, it has to be a number in between, so let's see which ones apply here. Is 34 good? That's in between. What about 12? Nope, it has to be greater than that. What about 29? Yes. 18? Yes. And 43?
No.
No, it has to be less than 43, so we should have just had 3 there. So you can pause here and try number 16. Okay, so you can double check your answer for number 16, but we're gonna move on to the next page. This is another easy concept, and sorry, it's blurry, but your paper's not blurry, so just look at yours. No, it's actually blurry. Okay, so this is another super easy part, so we're gonna move through this pretty quick. This is how you order angles from smallest to greatest, or greatest to least. So the angles of a triangle can be put in order by comparing the sides. So if we're given the sides, we can use that to help us order the angles. The smallest angle is always opposite the shortest side. And the largest angle is always opposite the longest side. Okay, which makes sense. If I think about what an angle is, it's just how wide of an opening. If it's a smaller opening, it's a shorter distance to travel in between the sides of the angle. If it's a larger angle, there's a longer way to travel. So if we're looking at this one, and again, sorry it's blurry, you might want to just look at your own paper. The smallest side here is what number? 7. So I'm going to go straight across from that, and that is my smallest angle, which is what? Angle A. So don't forget how to name our angles here. My middle side is 10, so I'm going to go straight across to angle what?
C.
Angle C. And that means my largest angle is angle B. So not difficult at all. Okay, we can do vice versa. We can use the angles to help us order the sides. So what do you think we're going to fill in here? The shortest side is always opposite the
Largest angle.
shortest side is the smallest angle. And the longest side is always opposite the biggest or largest, doesn't matter. Okay, but what do we notice about this picture? What are we missing here? You're missing angle F, right? Do we know how to solve for angle F? Yep. Good. I want to add these two together and subtract from 180. That's called our triangle sum. So that is part of your test. So we're going to add 42 and 103, which is 145, and we're going to subtract that from 180. You should need a calculator. And you get 35 degrees. 180 minus 145. Okay, so now that we have all the information, we can order them. So I'm going to find my smallest angle because I'm going from least to greatest. So my smallest angle is 35. I'm going to go across from that, and I see it's this side, but we can't forget how to name a side. I'm going to go ahead and put my segment symbol up above. How would I name that side? UD. Okay, I want to find my middle, so what angle am I going across from? 42, so I'm going to go straight across, and that is side DF. Don't forget your segment symbols up above. That means my longest my longest side is what? EF. There's one more thing I want to mention about this, and that has nothing to do with this lesson. But you'll see this on your review. I just wanted to talk about this because you hypothetically should have already known this, but just as a little bit of a review. We can name this triangle as either obtuse or acute here, depending on the angles. So if we have one obtuse angle, it makes it an obtuse triangle. Anyone remember what an obtuse angle is? More than 90. So this one has an angle of 103, which would make this what type of triangle? An obtuse triangle. If they're all 3 acute, then that makes it an acute triangle. So it takes one obtuse angle to make it an obtuse triangle. So you'll see that on your review. Just wanted to use that as an example. So let's go ahead and try one of these. We're going to order the angles, and I'm actually going to let you guys try this one on your own. So make sure we're doing angles here, so you should have your angle symbols. I got 92 degrees for angle K. Did you get 92? And then 59? Okay. So once we use triangle sum there, that should be easy to figure out. The smallest side would be across from 31, so that's KL. You always want to notice, like, these are least to greatest. Sometimes it'll be greatest to least. My middle side would be JK, and then JL is what I got. Is that what you guys got? Yes? No? Okay. And then the last one, I got SP, SV, and TV. So you can double check yours as well. Questions?
Oh no. What time do we get in?
Okay, we're gonna keep moving because this is the easy part. There's just a lot of it, but this is the easy part. Okay, again, sorry it's so blurry. This is a lot of words and it's really confusing when you read it. All it's saying is that if I have two triangles, I have two sides, and the included angle, it tells me. Where would the included angle be? How do I know what included or where to find that? Avery? Between them. So what angle is it in this way? Angle A and then angle D. Okay, so this tells me that it tells me that the included angle of the first is larger than the included angle of the second. So if I say that the measure of angle A is greater than the measure of angle D, the measure of angle A is greater than the measure of angle D, then that actually is telling me that this side across from it is going to be greater. So that one is my larger side. If that's my larger angle, that's my larger side. It's just kind of like common sense stuff. So then BC is greater than EF. So the larger angle finds the larger side there, if you're comparing two triangles. Okay, then we see this word converse. All we have to do when we see converse is switch the order. So it's just saying it in reverse. So if the sides are, if this side is larger than EF, that means that this angle is larger than the other. Okay, so you don't actually even have to read anything here for the converse. We're just going to flip that order right there. Converse just means to do it in reverse. Okay, so we're comparing the sides and angles here. Let's look at number 1. We're comparing KL and PM. I think for these it's smart to find them first, so I'm just going to highlight KL and PM. We're trying to determine which one is larger. So we're either going to be using a greater than or less than sign here to compare the two. So we have to go across to them to see which one is the bigger angle. So which one is bigger? 79 or 74? 79, which means that KL is going to be my larger side, so I'm going to use a greater than sign there. Okay, so let's look at number 2. And then I'll pause if you have questions. I'm going to highlight AD and BC. We're trying to determine which one is bigger, so I'm going to go across to the angles. Which angle is bigger here? BC. 65. Good, 65, so that is BC is larger, so I'm going to do the alligator mouth open to BC. Okay, so I'll, nope, I'm going to keep going with you guys because the next one we need to do some math. I'm going to highlight WX and XY. I'm going to go straight across to the angle. I have, is that 53? I can't read it here.
Yes.
So 53, and then if I go straight across, I'm missing that angle. But how can we figure out that angle?
Well, adding in the angle sound.
Good. I'm going to add these two angles together. So 32 and 93, and then figuring out that angle. You should get 55 degrees there, so when we're comparing 55 to 53, I know that 55 is larger, so that means XY is going to be the larger one.
How'd you get 50?
I added 32 and 93,
Okay,
and then subtracted from 180.
you got 55?
Yep. $125, yeah. Okay, and then the last one here, PQ and SP. If I go across, I have that angle, but I'm missing my other side. How could I figure out that angle? It's a linear pair, John Luke. So it equals what?
180.
180. So let's do 180 minus 83. Should be 97. So 97 is larger, therefore the side QP or PQ is larger. Okay, I'll do one of these angles with you and then I'll let you do the rest. So now we're looking at the sides to determine which angle is bigger. So I'm going to find angle D, and I'm just going to circle it, or you can mark it with your arc, and angle H. So I'm going to go straight across from them to the sides. 35 is bigger than 33, so therefore angle D is going to be larger. Okay, so bigger side, bigger angle, and vice versa. So I'm going to pause here if you have any questions, but go ahead and try 6, 7, and 8. Okay, I'm going to go over number 7, but for number 6, which one did we find was bigger? A. Okay, for the next one, you have to be able to locate these angles. So if you're not sure, tracing it is a really good way to find it. RSQ. RSQ, if I just trace that, that's this angle right here, RSQ. And then TQS is going to be right there. So that's the only thing we had to do extra there is just find the correct angle. I'm going to go across from both of them and find which one is bigger. So which one is larger? Good, TQS. So that should help you figure out the last one there. Okay, so the next part is why we went over our do now stuff, is why we reviewed how to work with inequalities in algebra, because we're going to need it for this part. That's your first number, right? Number 5?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're actually going back to the first thing that we learned, which was that the sum of the two sides of the angle is greater than the third. So it tells me the sides of a triangle have the following lengths. They're all equations. Find all possibilities for x. Since you do not know which sides are the shortest, you must account for all possibilities. So normally we would pick the sum of the two smallest angles, right? And do it greater than the third, but do we know which one is smallest here? No, we don't. So we have to have 3 different combinations to account for all the possibilities. So we can do AB plus BC is greater than AC as my third. That's one combination. My next combination could be BC plus AC is greater than AB. And then what could my last combination be? AB plus AC is greater than, what's the last one? BC. So that's the easy part.
This is it?
That is not it. So we're actually going to solve for these values of x. So we're going to plug in our equations here. And it's not difficult. It's just our algebra stuff, but we have to do it 3 times. That's what takes so long. So AB is 4x plus 25. BC is 3x minus 2, and it is greater than 9x minus 5. And I'm going to do this with you. So first thing I need to do here, we're just going to go ahead and solve this one, would be to do what? Combine like terms. Good. So I have 4x and 3x, which is 7x, and then I do the double lines like you guys learned in Algebra 1. So then I have 25 minus 2,
Is
23. And that is greater than 9x minus 5. Okay, remember for inequalities, we always want to move the x to the what direction? To the left. So I'm going to subtract 9x here. It's okay that we have negatives. I'm going to keep bringing down my greater than sign. I'm going to bring down everything else, and then 7 minus 9 gives me negative 2x. Okay, now I need to move my 23 over, so I'm going to subtract 23 from each side. I have negative 2x is greater than negative 28. And now what do I need to divide by? Negative 2. When I divide by a negative, what do I have to do? Flip the sign, so it now changes to a less than sign. So I'm left with x is less than positive 14. So we're a third of the way done. So we're going to do the next one. I'm going to go through this whole process with you, because then we're still not done after this. So BC is 3x minus 2. Then we're going to add 9x minus 5. And it's going to be greater than 4x plus 25. Is there enough room on your papers? Running out of room?
Yeah.
We're not going to do the next one, so you need to keep moving down.
Yes.
So 3x and 9x is 12x. I have a negative 5 and a negative 2, which is negative 7. Okay, what do I need to move first? Which one do we need to move? 4x, so we're going to subtract 4x from each side. So I have 8x minus 7 is greater than 25. Let's go ahead and add 7 to each side. So I have 8x is greater than 32. And when I divide by 8, I get x is greater than what? 4. And last round. At this point, you might think we have enough information, but we always have to do all three, so that you will eliminate one, is my point. So you are kind of doing more work than you think that you need to do. But it's always really necessary to do all of them so we can eliminate the right one. So 4x plus 25 plus 9x minus 5 is greater than 3x minus 2. Let's start combining. What's 4 plus 9x? 13x. 25 minus 5 gives me 20. And then I'm going to bring down the rest. We always want to move to the left, so what are we going to subtract first? Plus u. So I get 10x plus 20 is greater than negative 2. Now I need to subtract what? Subtract 20 from each side. I get 10x is greater than negative 22. This is where a lot of people get confused and flip the sign. Why are we not flipping the sign here?
Because
Not
the x
divided
is
by
not
negatives.
Because this 10 is not a negative. This number does not matter at all. Some people see that negative sign and go ahead and flip their sign. The only time you're actually flipping it is if the number you're dividing or multiplying by is negative. Do we know the trick for dividing and multiplying by x? with the moving decimal point.
Just one, right?
So if there's 1, 0, and we're dividing, I know like my decimal point is 22.0, so I'm going to take that and move it once to the left if I'm dividing. So I'm going smaller. So this is negative 2.2.
Wait, how do you do that?
If we divide by 10, since there's 1, 0, we're just moving it one place to the left
Alright.
to go smaller. If we were multiplying by 10, we would go one place to the right. Okay, any questions with this so far? We're going to graph these so I can show you which one to eliminate. You won't have to graph it every time, but I want to like show you why we are eliminating one of them. So it doesn't matter if you move down to the next one, we're not going to do that one. Go ahead. I want everyone graphing this one as well. Well, my line is very curved, sorry.
Like the line is?
Yep, we're going to graph these 3 inequalities so we can see which one to eliminate here. Because we're finding a range, so we're finding a minimum and a maximum. We only need 2 of them. We're going to eliminate one. You can probably take a guess at which one we're eliminating, but this is explaining why. So I'm going to put these in order. It doesn't really have to be super accurate, but I know 14 should be the farthest down the number line. Then 4, then negative 2.2. They don't have to be spaced out in a certain spot. You just want them in chronological order. Okay, are they all going to be closed circles or open circles? They're all open because we don't have an equal sign. So this says x is less than 14. So I'm going to go all the way less than 14. It tells me, you'll see we have 2 greater than signs. We're going to be eliminating one of those. It is greater than 2.2, and it is also greater than 4. Okay, so we want the range where those 3 lines are going to overlap, and there's only in between 2 numbers where that happens. So we're going to go until we see where the 3 lines start. So I have all my 3 lines in between 4 and 14. We see there's only 2 lines out here. So you're always going to be eliminating the lower number out of your 2 greater than signs. So once we get down to this 1 less than sign, we know we're keeping that one. And then you always want to just eliminate the lower number between the 2 greater than signs. So you don't actually have to graph it every time. That's just explaining why we're eliminating that one. But you'll always just get rid of that lower number.
So the lowest number always gets.
Out of the greater than signs, the lower number just gets deleted. So my final answer, after all that work, would be the range between 4 and 14. That's the only place where all of my values would overlap. A lot of work, right, for one little answer. But you will have one question like that on the test. Okay, so we're doing the listing the angles in order from least to greatest. So we're going to be looking across from the smallest side. But you'll see that they didn't make it easy for us. They gave me 3 equations for the 3 sides. So I have to find x and then plug back in to actually get those values to then number our angles or order our angles. So they gave me the 3 sides of my triangle. I'm going to go ahead and write that down. Triangle AMK. So AM is x plus 13. I know MK is 4x minus 3. And I know AK is 9x minus 22. They gave me those 3 sides, and then they give me the what? The perimeter. What is the perimeter? Yes, but what is a perimeter? Sorry, what's the definition?
Around the things.
We're adding all the lengths up, right? Isn't that exactly what we just did? Add up all the side lengths? So that would be equal to my perimeter of 58. So we added up all the sides and set it equal to the perimeter. Okay, from there we're going to go ahead and solve for x. So let's take a second and do that. 9 and 4 plus x would be 14. Negative 25. Is that 12? Negative 12?
Yeah.
Wait, hold on.
Is that negative 12?
Yeah.
Negative 25 plus 13.
Yeah.
12 plus 8. And then add
Negative
12.
12.
Okay, so then we're going to add 12, 70. And then we're going to divide by 14. It's 5. Okay, x equals 5, but we're nowhere near done. We need to figure out those three lengths. So let's go ahead and let's divide and conquer. Can maybe one of us solve for this one? And maybe your partner solve for the other one, and then I'll solve for the last one. Does that work? Just plug in x.
18, 17
45 minus 22,
equals
20.
23.
See, you did them all. So AK is 23. What'd you get for AM?
Yeah, 18.
18. And MK? 20 minus
17.
3 is 17. Okay, so from now at this point, we know how to do this problem, right? We can now order these angles. Make sure you're reading the question. We're going to order these angles from least to greatest. We want to find that smallest side and go across from it. So my smallest angle is A. My middle is what? Across from 18
Okay.
is K. And that means my biggest angle is angle M. So you'll have 2 questions like this on your test. So these are, again, they're not difficult, they're just long. I get that. They're long. But we're done with that. You guys can just work on your review.
You keep that up.
And that will be due on Thursday.